Why struggle through a post-merger integration when you can glide through it? Why deal with the PMI integration challenges when you can overcome them even before they occur? Why move slow when you can move at pace? What are the world's leading PMI experts doing right now to achieve profit-accelerating integrations? This podcast will give you all the answers to these questions and many more. My name is Dudley Peacock, and welcome to the 100 Days and Beyond podcast. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of our marketing leadership podcast, where we talk to marketing specialists. We got a really good guy today, someone who has spent the bulk of his career, especially in marketing around social media. And as you know, in this podcast, we talk to those, I would say, not just the everyday marketing people, but the leaders that do more, that spend more time and really get to know their craft, their art, if you like, and go through all the various stages. As you know, in the old days, we had apprenticeships. I think if I look at Tony, wow, I think he's done his apprenticeship in social media, and I think he's got tons of things to share that are going to be valuable to any marketing leaders or any budding or aspiring leaders in marketing out there. So in terms of marketing leadership, this is what we're talking about today, is about being a true marketing leader, being a leader that does more than what is required, but also gets to really understand what goes in, almost in the engineering side of things of marketing. Marketing is an art and a skill, and it depends on which side of the fence you sit. But I think Tony has pretty much got it spot on in terms of social media marketing. It's one of those mythical areas that people do struggle, and I think we got the right guy on board for today. So welcome, Tony. Let me just get you onto the picture. Welcome, Tony. Good to see you today, and I'm glad you got your socialhire.com website there so people can get hold of you. Welcome.
Thank you.
For joining us.
Great to be here.
So if I look at your LinkedIn profile, Tony, I think I'm going to just read a few key elements out of this, and then we're going to just go dig straight into it and have a look at I think the journey that you've taken, because for me it's fascinating in terms of where social media has begun. I mean, social media is commonly known. Everyone's like, you know, what's the posting, and I mean the in the 90s, I think, you know, if you took photographs, you still had to get them developed. I think in those days, and there's digital photography, but you needed very expensive cameras. These days, everyone has things on their phones, so they're taking snapshots of their meals, their dogs, their cats, and everything. I think that's social media. Yes, to a great extent it is, but if you take it from a marketing point of view, I think it becomes completely different. So if I look at your LinkedIn profile, you talk about social media marketing is like a Rubik's cube, and wow, I mean that's probably probably the best way I've seen of explaining it. I'll help your business solve it. And I mean, I love that, because you can actually, if you know the sequence to solve a Rubik's cube, you can do that. Small business marketing and lead generation, recruitment marketing, which I think is critical these days, because companies don't think of employing the marketing department or marketing leaders within the organization to also be looking at bringing in the right talent. And then in terms of social selling, I think that's absolutely spot on. So you've got, I mean, you talk about want to start generating leads and or candidates by leveraging social media marketing. You talk about that the people can book a call, but I think what I like here is where you say getting results from social media marketing is like trying to solve the Rubik's cube, isn't it? Infuriating for most, but more straightforward for those who have put in the hours to master every element of what's needed to succeed. So welcome, Tony. I'm glad that you're on board, and I think just I mean, our conversation leading into the podcast and into this episode, what fascinated me most probably was your journey, because you started many years ago when this was a relatively unexplored new world. And maybe if you want to just take us through that sort of what your experiences were, how you got into this fascinating world, and where you are today and what you're busy doing at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and thanks for having me. And I'm delighted you picked up on the Rubik's Cube analogy. I must confess, I can't do a Rubik's Cube. You never figured that out. Never took the time to figure out how to do it. But when I was getting into social media, I remembered those frustrations as a kid of of spending hours trying to trying to finish it, and then seeing these Guinness World Record things where people had done it in X minutes or even X seconds, as it subsequently became. So um, hence the analogy.
I love
But
it.
what I would do actually is just take you back very briefly to what I did in my summers at university, because I did door-to-door cold selling in the United States. And for anyone who's ever done any cold calling, you learn very quickly it is, well, firstly, it can be highly dejecting. If you're someone who doesn't take, being rejected well, then it's not something you're going to thrive at. I would have to knock on dozens and dozens and dozens of doors every single day. Most people not be interested in what I had, to offer. And then I'd have to actually talk through with 30 people in a day how we could help them in order to make the number of sales that actually meant I was earning a living. Now I only bring that up because when I then went into business and subsequently became very involved in digital marketing, what I really wanted to help people with was not having to go through that in order to make sales. So obviously, there are businesses out there that thrive just from picking up the phone or sending emails to people who, never express an interest, and just, doing enough of that till you find someone that needs your services.
Yes.
But that actually is a big obstacle for a lot of business owners, because if you're not comfortable with that kind of approach, particularly in your early days, then where are your customers going to come from? And so my approach with social media has really been, from day one, I want to figure out how you use social media to actually get a stream of people that want or have an interest in doing business with your company because they have a need for what it is you do, and that they've come to you wanting a call or wanting to spend some time with you, rather than you having to, be constantly cold calling and cold approaching people. So I hope that helps, sort of by way of intro.
It helps a lot, because I think most people that have been involved in the hardcore cold selling, and I think if you go back a number of years, that there were very few avenues to reach your target audience. I mean, you could pick up the phone, you could send them a letter, you could knock on the door, you could attend maybe an event or two, but social selling often was more sort of, let's say, it was more for the higher end guys that could afford sort of golf and going to the local tennis club or whatever it is, or attend some kind of networking event. But not everybody could get involved in that sort of social space, if you like. And social meant something completely different. It probably meant a whole lot of alcohol and other beverages as well. But as things moved, and platforms developed in the back end of the 90s and early 2000s, we had, I think, YouTube and Facebook and all that only really started picking up in 2006, if you like. And it's if you think, that's, what's that, 16 years, 15, 16 years, and it feels like it's been around forever. And I think Rubik's Cube's probably been around about longer than that. But if I just ask you then, so what are the key things, if you look at social selling, what are the key principles? Because when I look at social selling and even social engagement with people, I mean, we're talking here about a lot about behavioral psychology to a certain extent. It's you can't offer somebody something before they at least have a nice warm fuzzy about you. You can't ask for marriage or a wedding proposal before you've done a bit of homework in up front. You can't actually just go out and do certain things. There is a sequence. There is a relationship building sequence, if you like, and I'm sure social selling has got that sort of thing. And on these different platforms, they also have different audiences. I mean,
Mm.
so maybe there are different things that you've discovered that you could pick out and just sort of share some of the core principles that you've learned, almost sometimes probably the hard way, but probably learned over the last sort of 10 odd years, 10, 12 years, I think, that you've been in it.
Yeah, happy to do that. I mean, I would start by saying I think there are really two, broad approaches that work well when it comes to using social media to generate business inquiries and interest, candidate hires, event attendees, whatever it is you're striving for as a business. And a lot of people get fixated with the first, whereas actually the second is much more attainable and much more easily tracked and achieved. So the first approach, which is the one that we get hoodwinked into thinking is the one that is the most attainable, is building up a huge presence for yourself on social media, such that you get seen by so many of your ideal clients and get seen so repeatedly that you start getting a regular flurry of interest and inquiries just from the actions of you having posted on whichever channel you're on. And we all get hoodwinked into thinking that that's the easiest way of getting results on social media, because that tends to be what we see when we go onto social media. Because when whether you open up Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever else, what you're most likely to see in your homepage feed is actually the posts that are doing super, super well. And so you look at that and you think, if my posts do as well as that, then then I'll start getting a huge flurry of interest for my business. But what's hidden from view is the fact that for every person there is in your LinkedIn homepage feed who's getting hundreds of engagements and likes and comments, there's several hundred people on LinkedIn who aren't getting that kind of visibility and engagement. So that is certainly one way of getting results on social media. But it is, I would say, the harder way and the way that is more likely to end in frustration and you not having got the results you want. The easier way to get results on social media is to concentrate on a pool of people that you want to nurture relationships with, and we used to say in selling, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. Well, if you take the kinds of businesses we typically work with, so we work with professional services firms and technology companies. So, a consulting firm, a recruitment agency, a training company, something like that. And if you think about those businesses, they typically only need to make a small number of sales to other, corporates during the course of the year, and that is their business thriving and growing, very nicely. And so how many of the right decision makers do you need to be striking up relationships with each quarter in order to get enough meetings that turns into business for you? And actually the answer is relatively modest. If you're a consulting firm and I don't know, you focused on the pharmaceutical market, well, if you take the top 100 pharmaceutical companies out there and you look at who all the key executives are in those businesses, if you get just a few hundred of them that you are regularly interacting with and able to have private conversations with through social media, that's going to turn into a very powerful source of leads for you. So those are the two routes that I've seen work. I think anything else is likely to disappoint in terms of bringing results. What I love about both of those approaches, but especially the second of those approaches, is it's really a numbers game, and it's figuring out what works and then doing more of what works, tweaking and refining to improve on that, and then you get pretty known outcomes. And this goes right back to, the door-to-door selling days. I knew I needed to knock on this many doors and have this many meaningful conversations with people each day in order to make the number of sales I need to make. And social media is no different. You need to start conversations with this many of your ideal prospects during a quarter in order to have got the number of meetings and ultimately the amount of sales that you want to get. Does that help? Does that all make sense?
I love that, and immediately what came to mind, and I'm probably going to get into trouble for this, but what I noticed, and one of the areas of business that I'm involved in is the so the ERP, or business management software space, and that generally you don't need, especially in the mid and upper markets, you don't need 10,000 customers per month. If you signing up one or two, three deals a month as an agency or a reseller or something, you're doing relatively well. If you bring on 50 odd clients a year, you're doing very, very well. So you don't need 10,000 clients. So, it's almost like a parody in a way, but I looked at one of the software companies. It's quite well known, a company called Oracle NetSuite. You may or may not have heard of it. And I watched this whole thing unfold. So what was clear to me is that during a period, I think Oracle bought NetSuite. I think NetSuite started in 98. Oracle bought NetSuite in 2008, I think it was, and then did the normal channel sales, building relationships with people to get their distribution there. And then I think the pandemic hit, right? So what happened was, they started this campaign. And I don't know if you saw it all over the place, but they started flooding the market with endless amounts of social media posts. You go into any kind of platform, and there you see another Oracle NetSuite, some kind of article, some kind of this, some kind of that, and they were drowning the audience in that. And they had rolled out, maybe I'm talking about inside information here, but they rolled out multiple direct channel sales because they thought they're not going to use the normal relationship sale. So most ERP businesses have a channel, so they build a good relationship with their channel, who has good relationships with the clients, and that they sell, and they would implement and support the client base. And they will have multiple channels. So an ERP vendor basically sells to its channel, supports its channel, and trains its channel, and provides sort of marketing and other support to its channel. Oracle decided for NetSuite to go direct. So they had built this whole infrastructure worldwide to sell direct to clients, because they thought, you know what, we'll just package a product that can just sort of be plug and play. And what they didn't realize is there's still something called product market fit, and there's still something called a relationship sale. And I just saw this proliferation of social media posts going up, and all of a sudden they started closing those direct sales offices. They've reverted back to their old model. They've closed down direct sales completely, from what I've seen. And they've gone back to the old channel model, and they're now starting to rethink the way that they go to market. And that's just an example of this. And it could very well have been sort of, let's call it a youngish team of social sellers saying, you know what, we have to just sort of blast the universe with stuff, and let's see what happens. And I still see every now and then a post of like, how to start and grow a business, download a free guide now. And I'm like, what does a software vendor know about starting and growing a business? Tell me about, rather give me the message that's a fit. If I'm a buyer of software and ERP, rather give me a message that's a fit. If you want me to download or to opt into an offer of some sort, don't give me something that's totally unrelated. You're trying to be something that you're not. And it comes back to exactly what you were saying. So it says, build good relationships with fewer people. And some people even call it sort of the dream 100 or dream 500 or dream whatever list. as in, let me first understand who I want to approach, what those people are, what is the offer, and what is the, what can I do to add values? Because business is about an exchange of value, isn't it?
Mm.
It is about saying, I've got something you need. I've got something that I know that you want, but I know clearly what your challenges and problems are as a buyer, and I can help you through your journey of achieving what you want to do in terms of your success. And I want to just throw it out to you. I mean, you must have seen quite a few of these examples, and I'm probably going to get into trouble for this, but you've probably seen a number of these examples where companies have gone out and thought, okay, this is it. We're just going to go and flood the market. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, shoot, we've just spent, I don't know, X amount of thousands or millions. I don't know what NetSuite spent, but with very little to show for it. And I think that's a really good example of what some people, and especially people I speak to, their experience of social selling. So when you try and tell people, look, actually it does work, and they say, no, Tony, there's no ways. There's no ways it works because we've done this, this, and this. And then what you've said there in terms of saying, okay, these are the two sort of approaches. It's either the sort of mass posting and visibility, hoping someone's going to come and talk to you, or is it more about targeting? And I just wanted to sort of use that as sort of a platform for the continuing conversation. So tell me what you think about my story, and then sort of pull a few analogies out of that if you can.
Mm. Do you know, something I have learned over the years, whenever I see advice on how to get great results with any kind of digital marketing, I always have my radar on for what is it about this person's existing situation that means that they can get these kind of results, but that would mean other people trying to follow in getting their results, are going to struggle. And very often when you see, these courses and the like about how to get amazing SEO results, how to get your website on a page on Google, how to, grow an email list at an amazing rate of clicks, and how to get huge numbers of affiliate partners and whatever. When you actually look at people giving that kind of advice, you very often see, but hang on a minute, there's something about your business in terms of how old it is, how established your website is, how many backlinks you've already got, what size of email database you already have in your business. That means if a total, new business tries to do what you're recommending, there are key things about what you're recommending that are going to mean that they fall through and it doesn't work for them. And I say that because you always have to start from the point of view of what is the starting point of this business. Now, in the case you mentioned there, huge businesses with huge brands, very often with social media followings of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people following them on social media. Clearly, they're able to do things and achieve results that a regular small business can't replicate, because they don't have either that brand awareness or indeed the huge scale of following that those businesses already have. But more importantly, and this is really relevant for small businesses, when you go down the route of paying to advertise to get messages out on social media, then that becomes a very deep pocket game. And so, I don't know the particular campaign you're talking about or how successful it was, but any large company that's going down the route of getting results through social media adverts rather than having a team of salespeople getting results through social selling, they will have sunk vast sums of money into making that work for them. And let me just give you a few quick examples. So if you want to advertise on social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever, let's think about all the things you've got to get right. You've got to get your audience right. So on those social platforms, you're going to have to create different audiences, and you're going to have to put budget behind testing each of those audiences to find out which audience is most responsive to whatever message you're putting out there in the market. Then you're going to have to test the imagery or the video you're using in that advert, because run 10 different images or 10 different videos, and one of them's going to perform several times better than another. Then your call to action in that post or that advert, you've got to test that as well. And then you need to test actual completely different outcomes. So maybe you've got one campaign running that is trying to get people to book in for a demo. You've got another campaign running that's trying to get people to, I don't know, sign up for a webinar or come along to an open day you're hosting, something like that. To test all of those different variables and therefore get to the point where okay, this is the campaign that works the strongest for us. You need millions of marketing budget to be able to do that kind of testing thoroughly. And if you can't do that kind of testing thoroughly, then you're much more into the realms of guesswork. So a small business trying to replicate that, trying to set up ads to do well, needs to have a fairly sizable budget to get to the point where that those ads work. So I sort of highlight that because some people watching this probably, in smaller businesses may have tried out using social media ads and it's not produced anything for them. And so they assume, social media just doesn't work in our sector or with what we're trying to sell. And the answer is, or the counter to that is, you've gone down the advertising route without the size of budget that's needed to make that work. And for a lot of small businesses, it's a big leap to have to put in the kind of budget that's needed to make that work. And so getting all the results you can get from organic social media, so not paid social media, is often, a far more secure way of getting results. And that's what we, largely focus on as a business, is how do you get results on social media without, needing to have huge advertising budgets to achieve that. So I hope that helps.
I'm hoping it helps the audience, and I think it does. I think for me, you're absolutely right. It's budget, but I think it potentially goes, and I mean, this is part of our conversation we had before the podcast as well, was a lot. It's a lot more to do about, have you truly identified who your ideal customer is? That's number one. It shifts over time. I mean, that's probably a point number two. And if you look at a platform like LinkedIn, for instance, which is sort of the go-to B2B environment, if you like, or platform. If you go to LinkedIn and I mean, I've got close to 30,000. I think you got 30,000. 30,000 is the limit of people that you can be connected to in LinkedIn. So then it starts becoming limiting, because it's not this endless sort of, you can contact 7 billion people. It's not like that. You can contact whoever you got on your list. So if you're doing social media posting and your list of connections is not correct, or it's not in your ideal market, I mean, you already, it's just throwing stuff into the wind and hoping for the best. So I think for LinkedIn, what people have to really get to grips with is, you got to remember, you got a limit of 30,000, and that is your marketing list. So if you think about marketing principles, the way we used to do it right in the early days, is, what's your list? Marketing starts with a list. Am I right? I mean, it's like, show me your list. And I mean, if you talk to any sales guy and you say, show me your list, it's like, yes, it's on the CRM. It's like, okay, well, let's look at the quality of that list. Who are you talking to? Do they fit within the product target or product market fit profile that you need to be talking to? Do you understand your market? Do you understand the journey, the buying journey, not the selling journey, the buying journey of your market? And do you understand that the better your list, the better the quality of your list, and the better of the engagement of the people that you're trying to engage, the better your results are going to be, because it's all about relationship. It's not about how many thousands or things you can post out there. And what was very interesting when I spoke to you was that you're doing the same as me. I mean, I'm disconnecting, I don't know if that's the right word, but deconnecting from people that are no longer in my target market, that I connected to some years back. And things have shifted. They've moved on to different roles. They've moved on to different jobs. Some of them have retired. There's been a shift. how clean is your list? And then, then who are you talking to, and how well are you talking to them? Are you talking to the right people? I don't know. Tell me a little bit more about your thinking around that.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you do on any of the social sites gets amplified if people engage with it. And clearly, if all the people that see what you're putting out there have, a real interest in it, then you as an individual or as a company are going to get more engagement and then more, and therefore more share of the eyeballs. So having that clean list is really important. And yeah, you reference what I've been doing. So my previous business was a management consultancy careers site, global. So I had people all around the world, from universities, business schools, experienced hires, connecting with me because they knew me as the founder of Top Consultant, was that business. And they wanted to get my insights on how to get a career in consulting. But fast forward to now, and that now means that I have loads of connections in countries where we just don't do business, and we don't ever stand to do business in those countries. So for me, those are people who now aren't as interested in what I'm now doing, because they were interested in consulting careers, whereas now, I'm helping consulting firms with their social media. So, my ideal audience is founders, owners, directors of consulting firms, recruitment businesses, business coaches, and the like. So, freeing up space for people who are no longer, my ideal type of client, in order to make space for more of the people who are really going to benefit from what I share on the platform. For me, that's a no-brainer. But also, it should be said, there are loads of businesses out there where you're actually not going to get anywhere close to needing the full 30,000 connections anyway. I mean, if you take a lot of consulting businesses and they are focusing on one niche area, we are a cybersecurity consultancy, or we are a consultancy for the NHS in the UK, or we are a consulting firm helping, I don't know, companies that sell into big retailers. Actually the pool, when you go out there and you research the market and you look at, okay, who are the decision makers who would buy from us? It may be that there's only a couple of thousand that you really would have any interest in getting a meeting with, at which point, you hone down and you focus your efforts on getting, as many of those relationships started as possible.
Yeah, I love that. And some time back, about a year and a half ago, I started to look at what makes the size. What makes what's the size of a viable market? Because sometimes you have people that are shifting markets, and they're thinking, okay, well, we now have a new product or service, or we're trying to rethink, the way that we go to market, etc., or we're starting to use social selling as a tool, as we didn't do that before. My view is, you need, as you said, about a couple of thousand is probably the minimum, and I think what makes a viable market is probably about 3,000 to 4,000 really good, solid, high quality contacts on your list. Not that you're going to talk to them all, but I think, as you mentioned earlier, it is a numbers game. But anything less than a couple of anything less than 2,000, I think you're starting to become, it starts becoming a little difficult to get enough sufficient conversations going, depending again on the business. But again, I mean, from a consulting, in your space, if you like, from professional services and so on, you need at least that, from my experience. I don't know, what's your view on sort of what makes a viable market size, if from a list size point of view?
Yeah, I think that's a good kind of number to be aiming for. I mean, if I think of a small niche consulting firm, and let's say that historically they have got most of their business from hosting a business breakfast or a networking event 3 or 4 times a year, and to each of those events they've wanted to get along 50 of their ideal customers. Well, okay, so 4 of those events a year, so 200 people we need to get along to one of these events. If you've got 2,000 fans, followers, connections of the right profile of people, who you can then reach out to and individually invite them along to an event like that, then basically you've got, you know, the size of social media network there that you need to be able to make a success of those kinds of events. So it's not a huge numbers game. You know, you don't need to be reaching hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. You know, if you're a niche B2B business, you just need to be reaching enough of the right decision makers, and then to have figured out how you convert them. Because obviously it's one thing to have those 2,000 people, you know, following your Twitter account or connected to you on LinkedIn. But how do you then get those people from being a connection or a follower to, you know, you've actually had a Zoom call with them, or they've come and had a coffee meeting, or they've attended your business breakfast? And obviously that is a key thing to get right as well. Just on that, so very early days of Social Hire, we actually built the business through Twitter rather than LinkedIn initially. And I found a platform at the time called Cicado. It doesn't exist anymore, so don't bother going and looking it up. But what it did was it allowed you to put in some parameters and say, okay, this is what my ideal prospect on Twitter would look like. You know, they would have the following kinds of keywords in their Twitter profile, and they would have tweeted about the following kinds of topics. And then each day it would show us a dashboard of, here's people we think could be prospects for your business because they've got those keywords in their bio and they have tweeted one of your hot topics, you know, over the last 24 hours. And this dashboard then allowed you to, you know, then say, okay, that one's a potential prospect for me. And once they're a potential prospect, there would then be a sort of workflow that person, you would like their tweet, you would potentially add them to a Twitter list, you would follow them, and each of those things would result in that person getting a notification about you, and therefore being prompted to take a look at your profile and potentially follow you back. And that would then produce a certain number of people choose to follow you back each day or each week. And then once they followed you back, you could then say, okay, I want to send them a direct message after a certain period of time to try and get a conversation started or to try and get something to happen. Now, I've talked you through all this, Dudley, because it's really interesting for me. In our earliest days, we decided to test two things. So I wanted to offer people who connected in that way that they could have a free consultation call with us, and we would just, you know, get an understanding of their business and help them figure out whether social media could work for them. So a one-on-one consultation, really high value for them, not a sales pitch, but just a consultation call. And then alongside that, we offered, would you like to join a webinar where we're going to share ideas on, you know, here are some of the things we're seeing working on social media for small businesses like yours. Now, my instinct was that the phone call would outperform the webinar several-fold. I thought the webinars, you know, generic advice, it's not tailored to your business, you're not getting one-on-one time with us, so it's much lower value. And so if I hadn't been someone who was inclined to test things, I would have just gone with, you know, the one-on-one call and trying to get people booked in for one of those. And actually, when we ran that process and tested it all out, the webinar outperformed offering an individual call several-fold. So that's to say we got several times more leads generated from those activities on social media through going down the webinar route versus the one-on-one call route. Now, I must say this is back in sort of 2012, 2013 kind of time. So you can't necessarily take that and say, okay, that's what would work today, because obviously all these things you have to be testing over time and seeing what's changed. But that hopefully helps a lot of you watching to understand the real importance of testing things to see what works. Because if you've just been doing one approach with, you know, whatever it is you've been doing on social media, and that hasn't been yielding great results for you, it doesn't necessarily mean that social media doesn't work for your business. It means you just haven't come up with the right approach yet that it's going to start producing, repeatable, predictable results for you.
Oh,
So
golden nugget. Yeah, it's brilliant. I love golden nuggets. So there are quite a few takeaways already. From in terms of list and so on, and now this. I think the whole testing thing. I think marketers tend to you. Yeah, it's. I mean, years ago, it's not mine, but years ago, I heard the analogy is when you go fishing, you don't use the bait, for a fish that you're going to eat. Sometimes that bait is pretty smelly. It's like there's no way I'm going to eat that. But you cast the bait into wherever you're fishing, and you tend to catch fish. So it doesn't have to look or smell good to you, but as long as your audience appreciates that as a message or a method, that's the one thing. And I think the testing of that is absolutely critical. So constantly testing. The market has shifted. So webinars sometimes in certain industries do well, others don't, and so on. But I think there's a principle in that. And I think the principle, besides the testing, is what you did right at that particular point was an expertise first process or principle. So why would someone engage with you if they don't know enough about you and they haven't got a good sort of know, like, and trust? I think that was one of your things you said earlier. And I think what webinars did initially in the early days, for me anyway, and then they became incredibly, very dodgy in terms of, that hard push sell at the end, that they had the script where, they first tell their story. And I'm like so tired of those ones. And then right at the end is like, this should be worth 200 million, but actually you can get it for $5 today or whatever it is. It's like, how on earth did you even come up with those numbers? That all that stuff. But I think that testing is massively important. But I think if you run webinars or you run any kind of expertise first, get that trust, that ability to show that you actually know what you're talking about. And they get a sense of who you are as an individual, that you're not just out there to take their money, but you're not there to take what they want, but you're there to add value to their lives. And I think that additional step before they commit, it's like, do you commit to a first date or don't you? If you're in the dating scene, let me first find out from, have a look around. Is that person the right kind of fit for me? Who their friends, let me just look at the environment first, and before we start doing that sort of, committing sort of a one-to-one chat. And I think what you did 100% right there was that sort of expertise first, that connection first, and then, and that's exactly right. But you tested it. And I think that's the point you were trying to make is the testing. The interesting thing now is what works now compared to then. More so for you, because you're not only in sort of helping your clients get more clients, but you're also into the hiring side of things as well. So tell us a little bit about sort of where are you finding sort of the sort of sweet spots at the moment compared to, from some years back?
Firstly, I would say for anyone that's not a massive, brand, focus on your individual team members to get your message out there and to build the audience, rather than being fixated with the company account. And that tends to be something that business owners can struggle with, because obviously, if you encourage 10 people in your business to grow a fantastic audience on social media that benefits your business, the problem with that is those 10 people could leave, and then that audience has gone with them. And so there is often a reluctance to do that, and a desire to instead grow the company's presence on social media. But the problem with that is that all the platforms heavily penalize company pages. And so, you or I, with our 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, if we put something out on LinkedIn, we will get this amount of visibility for that. If a company with 30,000 followers puts out the same post, they will get only a tiny fraction of the visibility, because LinkedIn wants companies to have to pay to sponsor their posts. So one other thing, whatever your business is trying to achieve on social media, whether it's making hires or getting event attendees or generating demo requests or getting potential consulting clients along to a networking event, whatever it might be, I would encourage you to build that around the presence of your individual employees rather than getting overly fixated on the company. And by the way, that doesn't mean that the company isn't taking center stage. If you look at, for example, Social Hire, all of our team put out posts with advice on how to get results through social media, but those posts are, have posters with the Social Hire branding on, or their videos with Social Hire in there. So although it's the individual team members putting those posts out, Social Hire is still very visible as a brand. So I would highlight that. What's worked, what hasn't worked, what's changed? I mean, to be honest, Dudley, it's so specific to countries, sectors, the platforms you're using. So almost anything I could say, if people sort of then tried to run with that, they could end up, coming unstuck. So we see, just to keep things at a simplistic level, we see big differences between different sectors. So certain sectors are much more active on some platforms than others. Job types, depending on who you need to reach. If you're trying to reach, very high level decision makers, then you're going to find them on certain platforms. If you're trying to reach, lower level employees where you need to hire huge numbers of those, they're going to be on other platforms. They're going to be reached different ways. So yeah, I mean, talk to someone, whatever you're trying to do in social media, who has worked in the kind of market that you serve, so that the advice you're getting is based on real experience of that market, and then take that advice on board. That would be what I would recommend. In terms of broader trends, I mean, obviously you've got the likes of TikTok just exploding, and all that kind of video content being getting huge airtime. I must say, for the kinds of B2B businesses that we work with, that's much less of an impact, because the kinds of people that are on TikTok watching that kind of content, if you're a B2B trying to reach high level decision makers, there's far fewer of them going to see your content on TikTok than if you do a great job on LinkedIn, for example. So you always have to tailor where you're going to focus your effort on, who it is you're trying to reach and what outcome you want to achieve. And one big piece of advice I would give there, Dudley, is it's much better to become an expert user of just one or two platforms than to feel like you're missing out by not being everywhere and then trying to be everywhere. We as a business, we don't have Snapchat. We don't invest a lot of time in TikTok. We haven't done anything with Pinterest for years. Because for us, we get far greater results from focusing our time on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook. But for other businesses, it'll be a different set of platforms that make most sense for them.
I love that, and I think, Tony, what you're saying there, and I want to take sort of some of the golden nuggets out of that, and one of them for me is being a specialist on the platform. But it's also speaking to specialists. You often, and I think you alluded to that in the beginning of our discussion, was you all you have to do is go into YouTube, and you have this guy standing next to his, I don't know, Lamborghini, and he's just made 500 billion yesterday on using social media posting, and all that garbage that you see out there. And it's like, that person's recipe, if it is true, is not a plug and play. It's not a sort of copy paste. You really do need to speak to those individuals like yourself, and this is why I thought it'd be very good to have you on the podcast, is people that know, but know from from an experience level, but not just from that, but that fully understand your market, your platform, the method to market, the way that things are changing, and but more so, it is about a guidance and a support by an expert, as opposed to trying to find these quick fixes. And I think people tend to default to sort of, oh, that looks easy, I'm going to just sort of buy that package or get that little solution, plug and play, and it's just going to run and run by itself. I think on LinkedIn at one stage, I don't know where it is right now, but you could buy these these pieces of software that would just automate connection requests and messaging and so on. Now, many people had bought those things thinking, you know what, it's just going to be something can run in the background, and I'm just going to just add a few messages, and it's going to do what's the maximum 100 connections a day or whatever it is before I get blocked by one of the channels. And I think LinkedIn was a proliferation of those things at one stage. And it was like message one, connect with me. Thank you for connecting. Message two is, I see you haven't connected yet. You must be busy. I thought I'd just remind you. Message three is like, this is my last message to you. Like, if you don't connect today, like, this is it. And then, or whatever, or it's a message like, here's my Calendly connection, book an appointment with me. It's like, well, I don't even know who you are. And like, or the PDF is also another one. It's like, here's a PDF of our company profile, whatever it is. Like, oh, come on, we don't even have a relationship yet. And I think going to guys like yourself and saying, sitting down and putting proper thought into it. And I think what would really struck me about our conversation and from knowing your work on that, Tony, is that you're the kind of guy that will sit with somebody and help them think through their specific situation. And I think we need a lot more of that. We need a lot more. There's no copy paste. This is it's a unique and a very specialized skill, talent, platform, etc., that needs experts. It's no longer something, was never really been, but it should not be taken as a quick fix. There's no quick fix. This is a method. If you want to get good at, let's call it direct mail, then get good at that. Write your letters and post your letters and all that. If you're still doing the old school snail mail, or if you're doing email marketing, get good at that. Know who your target market is, do the proper thing and do the proper approach, but bring the right people in if you don't have the skill yourself. Or, whatever, Facebook advertising and so on, and whatever. But don't try and be everything to everybody, or don't try and use every single platform out there, and don't try and take shortcuts. Sit down, decide on who your target market is, decide on what does that look like, what is your product or service market fit, what's the value proposition, what is the proper call to action, what's the message you're trying to get out there, and make sure you got all that stuff in place as you are deciding what the platform is. And then do what you said, test. But have someone that's guiding you through the testing and giving you all the options in terms of testing, and then saying, actually, that's a good result. It might not be the result you're expecting. You're not going to maybe book 100 new sales this week, but getting a few connections and starting to build momentum is probably the way, is the better way to do it. Because again, it's about building long-term good customer relationships. Because also about churn. If someone buys too quickly from you, they end up canceling too quickly from you as well. So you really also want good quality customers as well, or clients. You want to connect with them. If you're doing hiring, I mean, it's just the same thing. You want to help your clients hire the right people that are going to add value to their businesses. I mean, I'm just thought I just try and summarize a bit on some of our discussion. Would you agree with what I've said now?
Absolutely right. And I would really highlight, most of the leads we get into social hire are really good leads for us because of the way we market ourselves and the topics we talk about it through our blogs and webinars and whatever. Generally, people that come to us tend to be the kinds of businesses that we can help. But equally, each month I will get calls booked in from people where, it's just obvious that we're not the best agency to help them because they're in a sector or they're trying to get outcomes from social media that we haven't served before, we haven't achieved that before, and so we'll turn that business away. Because for me, I know if I don't know how to get results for that business or how to get that particular outcome, we might be able to do a decent job of that, but it's going to take us many, many, many months of figuring out how do you get those results for that kind of client. Whereas if they turn to an agency or a freelancer who's already got those kinds of results for that kind of business, they could really accelerate the time frame in which they get those results. And this is really relevant for all the small businesses out there that are trying to do their own social media, or have just hired a recent university graduate because they all know about social media, they all use it all day long, or is asking the office manager to try and free up a bit of time each week to take care of their social media. The problem with that is you're starting from a point where you don't know how to get results, and therefore you're having to lose months and months of time and money to try and get to the point where you do know what works. And so one of the biggest wins you can get from social media is to find someone who has already achieved what you're trying to achieve in your business. And then, whether you employ them, whether you outsource to them, whether you, take them for lunch, whatever it is you do, tap into that knowledge so that you accelerate the pace at which you get results. If you take one thing away from today's call, I would say let it be that. Because if we as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old social media agency don't feel confident we can get results for a type of business we haven't worked for before, and we've got a big team of people that are specialists in loads of the different platforms and loads of the different approaches, what chance is there of someone in your business who's not got those results figuring that all out for themselves? It's just going to take forever, and probably you're going to give up on social media before you ever get to the point that it's worked,
and waste a lot of time and money, and which you could have rather spent elsewhere. Tony, we've come to the end of the hour, and it's happened so quickly, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And you really helped, I think, a lot of people within the community and better understand social media. And I think what I'd like to ask you now is sort of tell us a bit about your company. How can people get hold of you, and sort of and why, and why you as opposed to everyone else? But really, if they want to get hold of you, how do they do that?
So if you go to social-hire.com, you will see on the homepage the option to book in a call with us. And that is just, there's no cost to that. You can chat through with us what it would be like to work with us, what kind of results we think we could get for you. So we can figure out together, is this going to make sense for your business? And what kind of timescales can things be achieved in? In terms of us as a business, so we work with mostly small businesses, B2B businesses. So usually our clients will come to us and they'll have a really defined audience of who their company needs to reach and ultimately convert into customers or hires, in order that social media will have produced a great return for them. So if you're in a professional services business, maybe a consulting firm, a recruitment business, you're serving other businesses with a service of some sort, then it's highly likely we would be able to help, and also just give you a feel for what can be achieved in your business. In terms of timescales, we have clients initially, the only thing that they're agreeing to initially is to work with us for 90 days. And beyond that, it's then just a rolling monthly subscription. Now, we've got clients that have been with us for over 10 years. And average client's been with us for over a year and a half, and they've all been able to leave after 90 days. So that should speak volumes about the kind of results you can get once you've found the right partner, and it's all predictable and happening exactly as you were hoping. But I stress that because if you get the right person or the right agency in place, that's the kind of timescale in which you should be able to go from not getting any meaningful results on social media to actually we're now hosting an event that's got loads of our ideal clients coming to it. Or we've now got loads of Zoom calls for our sales team, or we've got loads of people that we're arranging demos with, or whatever it is your business needs to achieve. So that's the kind of timescale it's achievable in. If you'd like to chat through, your business, your particular market, and whether we think it's realistic or not to get those kinds of results for you, just book in for a call via the site, or drop me a connection request on LinkedIn. Make sure you put a note with that to say you've seen me on this call. And then I'll make space and get connected up.
Tony, that's fantastic, and I think that speaks volumes to me. Some of the people that I've come across in time, they talk about, it's all about impressions and likes and all that kind of thing, and where you different for me is, and this is highlighted. I thought just before we sort of close off, is that within 90 days, you are able to produce some form of results for that particular client. And it's not sort of wishful thinking. It's not sort of pie in the sky. It is within 90 days, we're going to produce a result that we sit down and agree we're going to sort of arrange for you. So, and I love that. I thought that's what really, truly differentiates you from everyone else and from a lot of agencies and that out there, but also your ability to turn clients away, but also, the ability to really understand your market, the platforms and so on. Tony, thank you very much. Any final sort of parting words before I say goodbye to the audience?
Only I would love you all to go away enthused about what social media could achieve for your business. A lot of you will have tried and experimented with social media and perhaps had disappointing results. I hope today's call has helped you realize that may well be just a function of what you were doing, not being the right things. And that for most of you on this call, it's highly likely that social media could be a big contributor to your growth and your success.
Love it. Thank you, Tony. We'll definitely invite you back for another episode at some stage in the future if you're open and willing. Thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience and then thank you again. But we'll be in touch. I'm sure there's a few clients that I can pass your way as well. So we must have a separate conversation about that. But thanks again, Tony. Have a super week. We'll catch up with you again. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today on another episode of Marketing Leadership, where we speak to those really, I think, fundamentally differently sort of formulated people with different offerings, people that are not just fly by night, that don't just take fat chances in terms of marketing. There's a lot of gumph and garbage out there. But I think what one of the big takeaways for me is things like testing and things like that. But one of the big takeaways for me is find the right expert, do your homework, make sure you're speaking to the right people and get the right advice for the correct platform out there. There's so many really very good things we could have covered, and we only really had an hour, but I'm sure we could carry on all day with Tony, and we'd probably keep churning out the golden nuggets. And thank you very much for that. Thank you, Tony, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again. And join us in the next episode of Marketing Leadership, the Fractional CMO show, where we talk about marketing and the true skills in the background of marketing. If you're watching this on YouTube or any one of the other channels, please like and subscribe, and we'll speak to you again. And all the best, and have a super week further. Hi, everybody. This is Dudley again. And if you need help with a future or existing post-merger integration, I want to invite you to arrange a free, no obligation meeting with us. During the meeting, we'll find out exactly what you need, what your challenges are, and we'll explain how our unique PMI slipstream method can help you. Simply call us or visit mergerintegration.co.uk. That's mergerintegration.co.uk, or come to our website, skillfulpursuit.com.